Welcome back to the Soil Talks podcast. Today, we have Xavier Hebert-Couturier, the CEO and founder of Picketa Systems. We have a gentleman that was a software engineer at the University of New Brunswick, now switched over, and I'd like to say it's basically created the lie detector for plant health. But in this podcast, if anything, today's guest is the man who built the machine. He and his team created the Lens, a handheld tool that uses light and AI to see what the human eye can't. It reveals the truth inside the leaf in real time, catching the hidden hunger before it ruins a harvest. Today, we're going to find out how this technology is ending the era of guesswork in the field. Xavier, welcome to the show. Let's get to the truth.
Super. Thank you, Brendan. And I'll echo one of the things you said, which is, one of the guys. We really started this with 4 guys from northwestern New Brunswick. And, my best friend growing up, Dom, is just as much part of this, Max and Zach as well. So it's been a group effort from the start.
So you guys have just really, at the end of the day, you guys have taken like 4 good brains, put them together, came up with the black box, or what I'd like to say, the black box of plant health. That's very interesting. Well, yeah, for decades, farmers, producers, agronomists, they've had to mail leaves in, right? To do tissue samples, to do sap analysis. And it's sitting there, you're waiting 5 to 7 days to always receive results back. Well, in that amount of time, a lot of things can change in a crop. The crops can either continue to grow or they suffer. And that is what Picketa Systems has done. They have basically bridged that gap where we're not waiting 5 to 7 days any longer to receive those results. We are getting those results in field at the time of analysis, where you can make great decisions for the actual crop to make sure that crop is performing to the fullest genetic potential.
Yeah, absolutely. We were kind of all on the farm at the end of our engineering degree. We all went to UNB, and we were looking around and looking for a project to do really, and saw that there was a bunch of technology coming out for soil, satellites, tractors were kind of driving themselves now, but we were still bagging samples of leaves and shipping them off to Ontario and waiting weeks and weeks. And it was really like a report card. So being good students, we didn't want a report card. We wanted, could we get a cheat sheet? Know exactly what the crop needs at that time. And it really cuts to the core. Like, as a farmer, as an agronomist, you spend a lot of your time trying to diagnose the crop instead of actually being able to make a plan and fix it, especially in season, right? We might only have a week or so to do any application. We're pretty finicky that way. So if we can get the information faster, it just puts you into be able to be reactive to what's going on, out in the field.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that 5 to 7 day window when you're mailing leaves here and there to try to just get a tissue sample, it's really tough because a lot of things can change in 5 to 7 days.
There's lots of issues with logistics. There's like 5 to 7 days is the best case. Like, we are used to seeing samples go 2-3 weeks. If you're far away from the lab, the leaf changes on the way, like within the bag itself, it will start to degrade and the chemistry will change by the time it gets to the lab. So there's a lot of issues. The timeliness is of course a big one, but consistency is another thing we hear over and over.
Absolutely. And especially with the way that agriculture is headed today with all the AI, with, pinpoint accuracy of putting nutrition down, things like that. That is what we think is so neat about what Picketa Systems has done, is you guys have been able to create that, like I say, the black box of plant health, where you can actually scan that plant right there, know what's going on, and then fix that. You could, though, let's discuss a little bit your transition, right? Because you were a software engineer, is that correct? If I'm not mistaken, at the University of New Brunswick. And then how did that translate into basically solving problems, say, in potato fields? I think that's where you guys started out, is in potato fields that you grew up around.
Yeah, exactly. I think we had the right backgrounds at the time. So, growing up, Dominic was had one of the largest family farms around for potatoes in St. Anne, New Brunswick. And I always grew up wanting to do engineering, build things. I would, tear things apart, put it back together, kind of that classic engineering mind, and really thought I had to go in, big tech, or go to Toronto or San Francisco or something to do big tech. And really when we were doing the degree was last year, was during COVID actually. So we were stuck back on the farm. And we had to do a capstone engineering project where you put everything you learn together, start a project. And really we said, like, well, what can we actually do that helps, people we know, the local community? And by the end of that 8-month process, we had a prototype. It wasn't the best prototype. It really was a student prototype. But the most important thing is we had 9 farmers from back home saying, come on to the farm to test it out. It's not like this summer. This is interesting. Keep going. And that encouragement and that kind of validation from the market that we're really trying to help out with was the key insight that, let's take the summer. We basically offered a sampling service at the lowest we could offer it, basically minimum wage, just to get us in the process and got us on the hands of the leaves. We'd go and collect the samples ourselves, thousands of samples. Would test out a bunch of technologies, ship it out to the lab, compare, and really did that for 2 years. The first New Brunswick, second New Brunswick PEI. And that's still at the core of what we're doing, which is, being out in the field, testing things, and really try to understand the plant by just the volume of the samples we can take. So this past year, I think we're approaching over 25,000 samples done in real time. It started with, doing a couple thousand, ourselves.
Well, you're saying that you've taken 25,000 samples just this past year, whereas you started out with just a few thousand. And I would take it probably, you said you matched those up, you sent them off to labs as well. So my guess is that you were actually putting it into some sort of machine learning algorithm or something to really see like, yes, this is what we're seeing. This is what the labs are saying. This is what we're seeing. And then it starts to refine itself kind of, right? A little bit of AI involved in it.
Exactly, Brandon. We're using that engineering side to basically train a virtual agronomist on thousands and thousands of examples, and it really starts to pattern match. Well, if these, it has more examples than, we've ever seen ourselves, and has more can see for more wavelengths that we can see, but it gets to be able to kind of diagnose leaves the same way someone would see is, if these wavelengths are, surging, that means that the cell walls might be thicker. That means you might have more calcium is an example, but it does this for 13 nutrients, which typically you would need a chemical test to do in the lab. So it was really about like, how can we make every field scout, as good at diagnosing crops as the best agronomists out there is really cool.
Yeah, no, and it does, because that's the thing is if there is one element, macro, micro, you name it, out of those 13, if there's anything that's missing, one little piece of that, you're only going to grow that crop to, the most limited nutrient, right? Or nutritional requirements. You're in trouble. And you guys can say, hey, man, right now, this is what's going on. Like, how did Picketa move from a university capstone project to a venture-backed startup? Because I know you guys got a little bit of venture capital as well that came in. That's like, yeah, you know what? Let's push this thing out to market a little bit more. So how did that happen?
Yeah. So as university students, we didn't have much to put into it. Really, we're on our own. We were lucky to be within kind of the TME program in UNB and had couple thousands of dollars to do a prototype, kind of get established. From there, we're able to sustain ourselves off that sampling service, like I mentioned, where we just be scouts in the fields. And then we kind of realized, okay, if we do want to make product and bring it to more farmers and expand, we needed funds. So we're able to kind of talk to, originally it was really like local farmers from both New Brunswick. We actually had some from Saskatchewan as well that pitched in kind of as angel investors. And, we're able to say, okay, we'll put a bit of money in this company, see how it goes. It might not be working right now, but it's worth trying. And I think people that backed us really got that vision of, this is an important problem. And then, with a bit more progress, a full product out, we call the lens, the black box mentioned up here. We're able to bring that to some venture capital firms, really specializing in ag tech. I think it's important to have investors that understand the industry. It's so different than anything else. So Tallgrass Ventures out of Calgary, NBIF, Cone, a couple others were able to kind of back us, and that helped us, expand the team a bit, get a product out there, and pay for the hardware, which gets pretty expensive when you're trying to scale this up.
And it's neat to see that also that local farming community kind of stood behind you guys. And it's probably a lot of those farms that you guys were on to begin with, that you were out there doing the sampling on, things like that. You were obviously providing them with good data, with things that they can make, changes in their fields immediately or to their crops immediately. And they saw benefit in it. So that's really cool that it kind of started out just really almost like a grassroots effort of these guys, other farms or producers around your area. Like, hey, we want to, we're willing to give, some money to these kids to get this thing up and going. And then of course, going to the next part of getting that venture capital, that's a whole nother portion of the company. You can say they're a whole nother step, but it's cool to see that those farms really supported you guys.
Yeah, it's a different stage for sure, but it's always been consistent that we're kind of an independent shop. We're 12 people kind of all focused on the mission. And, it's still a bit that way where the partners we're working with today, a lot of the retailers and universities they work with us because they see how important this is and know that this will be a decade-long calibration project to get every crop, to get every scenario, condition, nutrient out there. There's so much potential, but it takes a lot of teamwork. It takes a village really to know, every variation of how a corn plant will express different nutrient deficiencies. Those 25,000 samples were taken, we took a portion of that, but a lot of it was collaborating through different agronomists. And it's always been the case where there's a lot of different, trials program. Everyone has their own trial network, but we're kind of able to, work with all these folks and put it all together up to the point now where we're doing things like, being able to do custom critical levels. So let's say you're working with your local ag retailer. Well, they can actually benchmark, what's the best performing fields for this specific region, for the specific crop variety, and then use that on platform so that you're getting, is this the right nutrient level for this? Well, it's actually based off past results. And that's just compounding the knowledge that we have as a community, which is really cool to see. And we want to do more of those types of things.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That really is. And I think that's what amazes me the most is like that you guys were able to accomplish this. There's a lot of, usually you see big ag companies or jumping into things like this. So it's great to see college students went out, had an idea and then implemented it. I think that's a really neat part of it. And that you're not a, 200, 300, 1,000 person company. You guys, like you said, you guys all have a vision, 12 people, whatever that looks like. And you guys are out there doing it, and I think that's great. So if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in more to now into the, the tech side of it, the tech deep dive of kind of what you do. And I'm sure some of it's proprietary, which is fine. You obviously don't have to give up any of that, but will you explain to the audience and to the listeners what chemometrics is, or light reflectance, and machine learning in simple terms? I think that's the biggest thing. And then we're going to get down into then the next part of that is how does the handheld probe see those 13 different macro and micronutrients?
Yeah. We're really like an AI chemometric company. That's the base of what we do. It's basically being able to use a chemistry to get metrics, like chemometrics. Sure, there's a more scientific definition, but it's the same concept as if you went out into your field and you saw, your leaves yellowing. You would assume that there was a nitrogen deficiency. It's just how the colors of the plant, the structure of the plant gets affected by different nutrient conditions. So really that is what is the core of it. And we're able to do this through, two technologies that have been, getting more steam in the last, decade. The first is optics. Basically spectrometers we can use that just quantifies all those different wavelengths of, red at this color, blues at this level. But it does that not just through visible, but through near infrared as well. Allows you to see more than the human eye would and really quantify it. So we know exactly the number of each of the colors. Then from there, the machine learning, the AI is really what you would do if you were out and see, when this happens to the crop. If it's green and lively, probably going to get a good crop. Just does this a lot more mathematically, right? So we can get a specific number for each of the nutrients. And then we back test that with the lab. And that's how we build kind of a labeled data set, a supervised learning data set, so that we can kind of test the AI then, here's a signal from a leaf. What do you think it is? Pass fail if they get it right or not. After a while, we're able to have a big enough data set that we can kind of trust it to go out into the wild and tell you, okay, well, here's this much nitrogen, this much phosphorus, potassium, et cetera.
Yeah, it's almost like teaching the actual tool. That's basic. I mean, that's really what it's doing. That's really neat, And so then with that light reflectance, right? Like you said, I mean, if the leaves are turning yellow or whatever that looks like with that light reflectance, then is that then how it's being able, like, how does that handheld probe work then? Is it those cameras? Is it LiDAR? Like those types of things, that light reflectance that's coming off then? Then you can determine, like you said, the 13 different macro and micronutrients that you guys can test right now. Is that how that works then?
Yeah. And like in concept, this is not that different from the lab process. The lab process, what they do is, since the leaves come in a bunch of different conditions, some are dried out, some are, still has a bit of moisture, others are, in between. What they have to do is kind of dry it out, blend it all together so it's all even. So you take your 15 leaves that you send in, blend it all together. Then they'll do reactants and to react for different elements, and then do this process of looking at the different colors through chemometrics. So basically what we're doing is, could we do that straight in the field with fresh leaves? And can we match the leaf's structure to its chemical composition? And is there a correlation there? So when we started this project, there was a couple of papers here and there on these wavelengths were indicative of nitrogen, and this one was phosphorus, and it was all kind of scattered. So our thesis was like, okay, could we have enough data to be able to do this in all crops all the time? And I think we've been able to prove this with the core crops that we're working in today. Yeah, but really the probe itself, the box is very simple. It's a light source that you put directly onto the leaf, and it's important to get a really good picture of the leaf. I think there's a lot of folks working with satellites and onboard hyperspectral cameras and things like that, which has a lot of potential, but it's very noisy. So we said we really want to focus on just the leaf structure. You got to put the probe directly on the leaf tissue. Then it kind of takes a snapshot of that leaf. We actually have some error checking right then and there, because a lot of the errors are kind of sampling the wrong parts or of the leaf, or not having the leaf fully in the picture. We also have a check to see if it's an outlier. So like, is the raw scan of this leaf similar to all the other scans we've done of corn? If not, we should kind of put an alert flag and send that one to the lab and expand the data set. But basically, it's very simple. Take kind of a picture of the leaf, so to say. And then we feed it to our algorithms with a bit of data on, what crop it is, what stage it is, what variety it is, where is it. And then it looks through the data set, gives an answer. And then within a minute, you're able to see your concentration results. So what used to take a week or two now takes a minute.
Wow. Yeah, that's a game changer, just due to the fact that at the end of the day, then as you're walking out of the field, the drones are coming over with the right stuff in it, right? To fix the problem.
Yeah,
literally, that's almost what it's going to look like.
Yeah,
as
and
we
this
move
summer
further.
specifically, we've started working with a couple of folks that are like drone applicators and custom sprayers, even some folks working on autonomous drone, like growers in the fields that apply nitrogen and nutrients. So it's really cool to kind of see that loop being closed, right? So if we know exactly what the crop needs, we can apply it, kind of prescribe it and apply it in real time. I think there's a future where, as a farmer, you don't really need to think about fertilizers. This may be 10 years out, but if we're able to optimize that of knowing exactly what the crop needs, applying it, wouldn't that be?
Sure. No, absolutely. And do you guys see a difference in, because obviously our company, we're a biological company, right? We focus a lot on soil microbes, on, just really building the soil biome to the best it can be, the healthiest it can be. Do you guys see big variances then in fields that are just conventionally farmed to guys that are more leaning towards like a biological or a regenerative system then?
It's a good question. I know we work with a bunch of different systems. I think one of the common feedback we get, especially from the conventional folks, is, hey, I applied so much potassium in my field, but I'm not seeing it in my crop. And that's a big issue here where, even if you do a soil test, which you should do a soil test, know what's available, doesn't mean that it's available to the crop. And
that's right. It's not bioavailable.
Yeah. That's one of the common things we hear is like, well, I have, this in my field, this in my soil test, but your tissue test is different. And the response there is like, good. It should be different, or else it wouldn't be useful as a data point. So
Sure.
being able to see the uptake is what we open the door for. So you can actually see the before, let's say, an application and after. And then it starts to, like one of the goals is, can we get the feedback loop tighter? Because right now it's like a season wide. You had this fertilizer plan, you execute it. Was it good or not at the end of the season? But if we know the crop condition before and after, week to week, are we able to then, prove nutrient uptake of specific fertilizers at specific times? When do they work? How effective are they? Things like that on a week over week basis, which would be, I think, an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah. Well, and for us, the way I look at it, like for our companies, like then you could easily prove, like, yeah, absolutely. We put fertilizers out. It's biotic fertilizers, organic fertilizers, if the crop's needed or if the soil's requiring it. We really try to balance soil. But at the end of the day, I look at it from a standpoint of more so like, hey, you are deficient right now. Like, yes, it's in your soil report, because we suggest soil reports as well. It's the most imperative thing. Like, that's the start of it all, right? But then if you have this soil report, but then your plant is showing a deficiency, we could easily then, when we put that biology out, and that's a lot of the times what it's sometimes lacking, right? Is like, it is tied up in the soil. If we can get that biology working properly, it's going to cycle the nutrition which that plant needs, which will allow the plant to uptake it in bioavailable forms. You could easily show, like in our situation, utilizing this technology, we could easily show, here's the soil report. It's there. It's not in the plant. Biology application, leaf test, and you're talking within, minutes. And that's the same thing, the same way that biology works. If you have good living microbiology and you get it out in the field in the soil profile, it's around the rhizosphere, that it's going to start being uptaken quickly. Things are going to start happening quickly. And we could easily show that then
Yeah,
to producers and
exactly.
things like that. Like these unseen giants, these bacteria, these fungi, these things are creating that feedback loop that's now in your plant. And I mean, it's not, let's wait a week or like you said, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's now, like we can show them. So that's great. I
Exactly.
like that. Very
And,
nice.
it's a big shift from the way things are done now, where you might have university CRO trials where you do get, the detailed tissue analysis of how the crop uptakes it, the interim periods. And then you get it to market and, farmer puts it in the field and, if it's a good year, best product ever. If it's a bad year, I don't think it worked. Well, why? We should be able to dig deeper and really show, for these scenarios, here's how it works, here's the benefit. And so one of the things we're seeing is that people that used to take a dozen tissue samples over a season are now taking hundreds, if not thousands. So that resolution of knowing the impact of the crop, the doors open on it. And I'm excited to see if we get research level studies, research level quality at a commercial scale, what can you learn? I think it'll be very interesting to comb through those results and see.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah. And so now, after as we move on, let's discuss the philosophy that farmers don't need more data. They need answers, right? Like that's said a lot.
Yeah.
And, how does that lens or your guys' system, your black box, the Picketa system, how does that convert raw light data into actionable yes or no fertilizer passes? So it'll tell you said within 1 minute or around there, right? After it's put in. So is it hooked to a network then? The data's there and you're saying, yes, you know what? We need to get fertilizer on here immediately. Like, how does that work exactly?
Yeah. So in the real world, typically this, really our main users are ag input, retail agronomists. And it's no wonder why, they're tasked with going on dozens and dozens of farms and giving answers and resolving questions and being able to provide value to the farmer. So that's really someone who can benefit a lot from this. And typically it's, the scout sitting truck that can go out and, with this, instead of having just field visit, we're looking at it and, putting on the notes down, you can turn every field visit into a tissue test. Once it's scanned, it goes up to the network, and within a minute, not just the agronomist has the data, but also the farmer. So they can actually have a notification and see hey, this is how your field's doing. Even we're adding things like being able to see what's the outlier, where should I be paying attention to if you have 100 samples coming in. But really, then the agronomist can actually move on to, like I said, not trying to diagnose it, but making a plan. The best pass is everything's good, which we see a lot of times, which is you don't need to put any product in. But if you are going to put a product in, hey, we already have to show the need, and we can go next week and show the uptick. So it really changes the conversation from, hey, should I trust this guy trying to sell me fertilizer, to, he put the effort to know what the crop's doing. We can prove what happens once we do use that fertilizer that he's recommending, and can really shift towards problem solving. And I think there's a lot of ag tech companies that are working in, cool data, lots of cool data. But really, where does it change your plan? If it doesn't change behavior, if it doesn't give you an answer on a question that you had, then I think there's little value. So really, the way us at Picketa we see ROI is how many answered questions can we give within a season.
Sure. Yeah, no, and that's great. And it's neat that you can have actionable data immediately. The plan's built. It's not like, oh, let's wait 2 or 3 weeks and hope we can come up with a good plan to fix your problem. In 2 to 3 weeks, there's a lot of things that can happen in a crop that either is going to be very detrimental to the final yield or, be really a bumper crop. So that's great that you guys have been able to close that gap. And that's something that's so important in today's world, is that you have to close those gaps, because as commodity prices shrink, things happen, right? Like you have to be spot on application, your cost of your inputs. That's mostly conventional side. As you get into the regenerative side and those types of things, they don't have nearly as many inputs once you get to a certain level, but still they need to know if there's something that's missing, let's fix the system now, not in 2 or 3 weeks and hope we got it right. So that's great that you guys have done that.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, one of the biggest things as a farmer is the uncertainty, right? Am I doing everything I need to do? Whichever system you're in is a question you always have. So if we're able to check, not just the soil, but, how my crop's doing exactly, hopefully a benefit of this is also, removing uncertainty.
Sure. Yeah. And then there's a lot of pressure being a producer. I'm personally not, we help producers, but they have a lot of cash outlay at the beginning of the years, usually, to get the crops in the ground, and then you have the weather, which you can't control that. and there's all these other factors that play into creating a good or to growing a good bumper crop. And
Yeah.
like
And
they have all
fertilizer is
this.
like a third of that, right? Like input costs are crazy right now. So if you can save a bit, that's the best case for when you don't need to, or if you do need to, that's going to be profitable, right? That removes a big question.
Absolutely. And that's the way we're at too, is helping them, reduction of fertilizers, like those inputs. That's where producers will be able to put more money in their pocket and
Yeah.
make their farms more profitable. And it's through technology like Picketa Systems has, it's through biological technology, all of those things. And it's exciting to be part of it.
Pushes innovation when there's pressure, right? Like when fertilizer costs are very cheap, then why not apply more? But we're at a point now, I don't think you can do that and stay in business for too long.
Yeah. And the soil's destroyed. And next thing you know, you're just dumping, it's like you're dumping or throwing money after money. That's the easiest way to say it, right? It's just to try to get a better crop, and yields plateau, things happen. And it's like, well, this is the best I can do. So can you explain a little bit the work behind the scenes that Picketa has performed to calibrate for different crops? Like I know you started in potatoes. You've mentioned corn, canola, wheat, other crops. Like, so what have you guys done exactly? Like the behind the scenes work?
Yeah, like the initial calibration is really what it takes. So to bring it and be a useful tool, we put a lot of work into actually going out, profiling as much of the crop as we can. Kind of have, we need X amount of projects, X amount of samples, and before we can really reach that next stage of having it as a beta crop, we call it, or like an initial model release. We put a lot of work into it, and it needs to hit a certain performance goal. And those initial models, like we can only do so much ourselves, but we aim to be like 80% of the scenarios, it'll perform well. It's an okay model. And then that first year we release it, kind of like where canola was at the beginning of the year, was an initial model. So we were able to collect a bunch of data. Canada, we actually, spent a winter in Chile collecting more data on canola and corn. Went back, was able to hit those kind of minimum metrics to give it to certain of our clients. So then they were able to take it that first year, and then they all tested out. And part of that is we help pay for the lab samples and then reinforce it. And then from that first to second year, that's where like most of the improvement goes. So we have to do a lot to kind of kickstart it ourselves. And then kind of where wheat and soy will be this year will be that initial model. But we know with all the partners we have, folks working on this, plus the time that we're able to help fund the lab fees, that next year we've kind of seen dozens and dozens of different sites, thousands and thousands of samples. For most varieties, we're able to give a good result. That doesn't stop after that first year. Like we're continuously retraining models year over year, providing a lab validation budget, and then reevaluating everything. We have a dedicated data team with Don, like my co-founder, and a couple more folks that are constantly looking at what's the best way to build these AIs to know what to predict. But it's a continual process. And like I said, by the time we get the main row crops, the horticulture, all the crops on earth, if we're going to do, avocados and coconuts, and it's going to take a long time, but I think that's really our core competency, is building those models and then training artificial intelligence to really understand it.
No, that's great. Yeah, it's great to see that you guys are really taking the extra effort to make sure like you guys get a base model put in place. It sounds like it's not just like, here's the machine, you know what? This is what'll happen with strawberries, or this is what's going to happen with wheat. It's like you guys have to get that base model built in. Then, and then as the agronomists or whoever's collecting more data, it's just filling the data set in further and further, really closing the gaps and really making it, I don't want to say perfect, but literally perfecting it, getting closer and closer to perfection as years go. So then does it also take in like temperatures, rainfall, like all those things, or is it not quite there yet? It's just more so like, here's the region, here's the crop. Like, is it taking in all those factors as well?
Not yet. That is an interesting one. There's a couple of things like where we still want to build on the system. But right now, the main focus is like per crop. There's a different model for every crop. We found that crops are completely different from one from the other, at least for now. Like we might be able to solve that eventually. I think for the future, like, you need different models for different crops. And then, so it takes in the crop, it's where it's at, the variety and the growth stage right now.
Gotcha.
So those are the main ones right now, but we might be able to add, better temperature, humidity. There's a couple of things, time of day, even like we recommend consistency when going sampling. Because nutrients will fluctuate during the day, right? So if you're going there in the morning every time, it's not an issue, but just know that, if you're going in the afternoon, it will change a little bit, right? So there's a little bit still of protocol to follow, same as like what leaf to take. You want to have the earliest, newest, most mature leaf. So you get the most up-to-date picture, but yeah, a lot of it's like consistency from there.
Yeah, no, and it's just building, right? Like it's not all
Mm.
going to happen overnight. But what's cool that you guys are thinking about these things and kind of like, yeah, we can build this on, we can put this in, and it will take time. But I see it, like I said, 10 years down the line, all that's going to be built in. It's going to have weather models built in. I mean, who knows? Zip codes, the whole 9 yards, I would guess, and
Yeah,
that's great. It's cool to
it's
see.
been amazing to see like what we can get done so far with just the approach we've taken. But definitely, there's always that last bit of optimization. We're set up to keep going after that.
That's great. Well, yeah. So we're going to kind of shift away from the agronomy workflow, but in past interviews, agronomists have called your guys' system the lie detector for plants, and it's been said before. We saw it a lot. Can you give us examples where a plant's internal status, like the internal status of that plant, didn't match the visual look of a field? So like you walk in, the field's looking horrible or the field's looking great, but then you actually get your technology out, you get your system out, you check it, and it's like, man, this isn't anything close to what it's showing us in the field.
Yeah, I think the two common examples are like the first is everything's going well, crop looks good, knee-high corn in July, and people are happy, it's all green, and take a test and it's missing one of the key nutrients. So like if you're right before a reproductive stage in canola, for example, and you're missing boron, it might all look good, but when it comes to that stage, it won't be able to take full advantage of it. The other classic one is, you see yellow leaves. The first instinct is to apply more nitrogen. I think that's been trained in everyone. Like chlorosis, where yellow leaves could be 5 different deficiencies. So a lot of time, like that's one of the key moments. People are like, "Oh wow, I thought it was a nitrogen deficiency. Turns out it was something else or a combination of things." So like the yellow leaf thing is I think a good example of the eye can only get you so far.
Sure.
Versus having like a full system to do a tissue test and confirm, even if you have a suspicion of it, to at least being able to confirm it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And what's great about it too is I feel like it's really going to help on the environmental side too, right? And that's a perfect example of what you said. Oh, it's a yellow leaf. I got to put more nitrogen out. So next thing you know, they have the nitrogen out there. It's getting dumped onto the field. And the reality is it's like you didn't need it. For one, it's costing you money. For two, it's environmental issues. So I really feel like this system is also helping really bridge that gap with environmental issues as well. Does the crop really need it, or is it just that's what I'm trained to do? So that's a really neat aspect.
Most of the emissions for farming are the manufacturing of the fertilizers. That's the a third of it. So we worked with some folks like Branston in the UK that are doing like net zero trials on potatoes and see how far can we take it there. I think there's lots of trials going on at different universities for all crops with like a 0 nitrogen, full nitrogen, 50% nitrogen.
Sure.
They're all kind of looking at this, but how much do you turn that dial? And I think it'll be more finicky than people think. Like sometimes it is. Do you need that nitrogen? A lot of times you don't. But how can you confirm it if you don't know what the crop already has?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you guys bridge that gap. Perfect. Can you explain a little bit how the real-time testing changes the business model for crop scouts, though, and retailers? I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but how does it really change the game? And it's not just about science. It's about efficiency of time, right? That's really what it is. But if you could just explain a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like our main clients now are ag retailers. So by working with ag retailers, we don't not only have dedicated scouts, but they can serve, 20, 30 farmers. So really that's been where we've found our market so far. And for them, like if you ask them what's their biggest challenge, they're probably going to say labor. It's either cost or labor for sure. And being able to, train field scouts, that was our first jobs in agriculture. I think it's many people's first job in agriculture, going out, looking at the crops and, taking samples when you need to, but mostly just, scouting around. It's a hard position to fill for, and it's hard to, as a farmer, take, full advice of someone who's, maybe your first couple of years, seeing fields. So being able to have a tool that quantifies it, like a value prop, I think we can bring, is what if all the scouts are as well trained as your best agronomists on diagnosing crops? That completely changes the game, right? Like if you're able to have the data to back it up, like I said, not just the diagnostic, but the result after you have done your application, kind of changes the dynamic within that scouting team, but also with the farmer, right?
Sure.
The big thing with farmers is, having that trust, being able to know you're doing the best. A lot of that was reputation based in the past. it's getting, I think, more and more data driven. Of course, relationships are always super important, but being able to learn from your mistakes, quantify it, be a bit more analytical, I think is what the industry is going to. It's all about efficiency. Right?
Absolutely. And those scouts, then what's going to be really cool is a lot of those decisions will be able to be made literally in field or right then and there. And it doesn't have to go to an agronomy team and then the team has to review it. It's like, no, this is what's going on. Like, we need to get this dealt with right now. So it just really speeds up that process, which is great.
Yeah, you can spend time fixing issues instead of trying to figure out what it is. And we're starting to work with more and more custom applicators as well, which is cool because they have all the tools to fix it right there. It might be a drone applicator that does a sample right before and then can literally fix it in 5-10 minutes and apply what's needed, right? So that's really cool to see as well. Closing the
that is. So in that testing, then, so does it tell you the exact deficiency? Like, hey, you're in this area. It needs actually this much nutrition. And then obviously the drone operator, whoever, the scout or whoever can just quickly formulate, this is how much, macro, micronutrient, whatever's missing, calcium, magnesium, whatever that looks like. So they can calculate it right there? Or does your system also calculate how much needs to go out into that field to fix that deficiency?
Yeah. So that was a big part of it too, right? Like when we started, we just wanted to give a result, give numbers, 3% nitrogen. We realized that like one of the big issues with lab testing is not only the timeliness, but it's arbitrary. Is this result good? And they'll have their critical levels, but there's one critical level for all of corn in the Midwest, one for all of canola in Western Canada. And they were built typically in a greenhouse, so those critical levels are very broad at the best. So that was an issue we wanted to solve. So we have not just so you do get the percentages or parts per million for each nutrient. So you get your exact number, but we also look at for that crop, for like growth stage, where should you be? And what's the delta between the two? So that's where you can see like, I'm not just, this much potassium, but I should be this much. And we allow folks, like I said, to make custom critical levels. So from 30 years of trials, for this variety, we've seen it work best with this one. So if they put that extra kind of information in the platform, and it's something we're starting to do with universities like, Guelph, Cornell, Missouri, and a couple others, Nebraska, Lincoln. Like our goal there is, can we get the most up-to-date trial numbers on where your number should be right there when you need it with that report, right? So it's all automatically built in. And, for the big crops, it still needs a lot of work, but especially for like the horticulture crop, you'll get critical levels, which is like one level for the whole life cycle of a carrot. Sure. It's just like any other crop where there's a big demand curve, right? So if we can build that into the platform, I think that's another step of, not just making it faster, but making it more useful.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, and that would be a huge help because if you could say, okay, this is about where the nutrition needs to be, and that's a lot of data, right? Like, I mean, that takes years of time. But if you can do that and it's in field and hey, I'm this much low on this nutrient, I can put it in right now. That's great.
100%. And then as a like a company, we're pretty unopinionated on that part. Like really, we're opinionated on, scanned leaf, this is the nutrients, but having the tools built in for the agronomists to take it there allows them to make their decision a lot faster, right? Same with like regional benchmarking, seeing, was there any outlier trends in your best performing fields? If so, should you use that for like next year's critical levels, which is all kind of built into the platform as well.
Wow, that's amazing. And since this is newer technology, how do you suggest handling, the way we've always done it kind of mentality or mindset in traditional farming? Like everybody's like, well, we've always just done it this way, put out X amount of fertilizer, blah, 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 on and on and on, whatever that looks like, right? Like here's the standard application rate of fertilizer for this crop. This is what you need to put out. How do you do that since it is newer technology? How do you handle that?
Yeah. We've realized that like that first year adoption is critical. That's the big step people need to take. Like we've had really good retention once people try it and give it a shot. Like typically agronomists stick around with us year over year. So we've actually put together a trial program for this year, which de-risks it a lot. So it's a lower cost trial where we actually, help implement it. Like let's structure some trials. Let's put together a plan to test it the year. I think the biggest mistake might be, signing on for a new product, but not having a plan to really test it or validate it. Then at the end of the year, you're like, use it a little bit, but you're still not sure. Whereas you should be proactive in saying like, okay, we're going to these 5 fields. Let's put it up, do different trials. Let's compare it with the lab. We have a lab validation budget just for that because we know that's a big part of it, and be able to kind of run trials in season to see if it works. Right.
So, yeah. Absolutely. So actually getting that technology in the hands of those agronomists or the field scouts or whoever. I mean, I wouldn't even doubt it. To tell you the honest to God truth is probably even some of the larger farms. I mean, they have scouts on staff. They have
Yeah.
certain things, labs. They have, I mean, we work with some farms or some producers that they have a whole laboratory team, right? So they're
Yeah.
checking soil health, they're checking these types of things. So just getting that technology plugged in and then making sure that they use it, because a lot of people, like you said, they've went out, they've pulled leaves, they ship them off, and it's just like, this is what we've always done. And it's like, no, change this mindset. Let's put this technology in your hand and actually implement it. So I think
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
great way.
Yeah, and when we schedule pilots, we can actually like highlight the benefits. Like I think one of the key things is that our system has been shown to be more repeatable. So if you scan the same leaf twice, you're going to get about the same result. Versus the
Yeah.
lab would itself from our studies have been maybe 10-20% difference on average. And that could be experimental errors. It could be differences in shipping. If we're just straight comparing every sample, there's going to be that offset just because that's the offset with the lab itself, right? So if we're able to do repeatability studies and show like, hey, this is more deterministic, that's another thing that, we can highlight and show, like, if you're going to make decisions off it, we need to show it's a reliable data point and do it enough times for it to count.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's great. Yeah, and that's a great way to change the mindset, right? Get the tool in the hand, start utilizing it, get the data sets, like let them see for themselves and why they want to change. And then really what'll happen is those agronomists, those field scouts, and even the farms, right? The owners of the farms are going to be like, "Hey, I want this in my field. As a matter of fact, let's get a few of these systems out there because I have a lot of testing to do." So that's a great way to do it. Can you discuss Picketa's win at the Next Gen Nitrogen Challenge? I know you guys won some stuff there.
Yeah.
How does real time data directly reduce nitrous oxide emissions and nutrient runoff? If you don't mind, Xavier.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of like what you mentioned, Brandon, that if we can change that behavior of how much is applied when, and put that more efficient, then we're not only saving, costs on the farm's behalf, but also one of the main emission points in agriculture. So with Foresight's Next Gen Nitrogen Challenge, that was what we were trying to solve was, can we reduce emissions in agriculture? And we had already done a couple of these studies before, but this allowed us in 25 to, like, it helped fund a couple of trials with the Ontario Soil Network. And, with them, we're able to work on, I think, 3 different trials across Ontario with custom applicators at the University of Guelph and others to, try to quantify, what is that percentage? So for corn in Ontario, can we save 10% emissions, 20%, 30% emissions? And we're still going through data now. Like, it's pretty complicated, it turns out, to convert that to a metric. But I think, it's looking pretty positive that, if that key decision point is the biggest lever I think we can pull. And I think there's I saw that maybe all fertilizer are bad or all products are bad, when really it should be looked at, what is converting to pounds of food, because that's the end product. Like if an application is actually being effective, great. If it's not, we should be able to cut it out, right? So it was really looking deeper into that. And the fun part there was we have conventional sprayers, tractors. We had drone applicators, and we also had like pretty high tech rollers with Upside Robotics that had self-driving robots putting nitrogen in fields. So yeah, pretty exciting.
Wow, man, that's amazing. Yeah, and I agree 100%, and that's why we really focus on soil health too, side of it, right? Is because same thing with nitrogen, they might say put out, X amount of nitrogen for corn, you name that number, right? But the reality is 30% leached into the groundwater, 30%, put off into the atmosphere. And if we can somehow figure out that, which is part of the carbon sink in the soil and those types of things, the microbes, and we can reduce it as much as we can and still get that benefit, right? Like when we do put it out, if we have to put nutrition out, at the end of the day, we're only putting out really what's missing. We don't need to put out 30% more or whatever that number is, because we know that it's going to volatilize and we know it's going to wash into the waterways, right? So
yeah.
that's
And I
really
think
cool.
there's, studies range from 20 to 50 to 60% fertilizer wasted overall. So I think there's a large room for improvement, right?
Yeah. And if you can do that, that's huge on the environmental side. Taking your guys' the Picketa Systems, that black box, and say the lens technology and putting it out there and be like, hey, man, not only are we going to help you with your crop production, we're going to also reduce the amount of emissions or the amount of, waste and
Mhm.
pollution that we're putting into, the atmosphere and waterways. It's a big deal.
Yeah,
That's
and
great.
impact on the soil too, right? If it's synthetic fertilizers getting put out there, like sometimes you can shoot yourself in the foot, right? So if we can save
Yeah.
that, I think that's another great benefit.
Absolutely. And don't even fool yourself, even organic fertilizers. Sometimes everybody, they put a little out and they think, oh, it's good, but then next thing you know, they just overload a soil with organic or a biotic fertilizer. And it's the same thing. They can be pollutants as well, so you got to be wise with what you're putting out, why you're putting it out, when, what you're trying to solve. So that's great.
Yeah. The,
Now,
the,
if,
the
yeah,
dose makes the poison, right?
it does. Drink too much water, you'll die, at the end of the day, right? But deep dive into how the tech enables the right source, the right rate, the right time, and the right place, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were able to talk with the Fertilizer Institute there at the folks in the 4R,
Yeah,
framework up in Indianapolis this summer. Really, the whole concept we're trying to explain is like the feedback fertility.
sure.
And I guess the nerdiest way I can explain this from software engineering perspective is that, way back in the day when you used to do a big technology project, you would have your waterfall development method, which is kind of like a plan. Okay, we'll do this and then this and then this and then this. And that was notorious for going over schedule, overboard. But nowadays they do what we call an agile sprint method, which is like every week we choose a couple tasks, we go through it, and then we do a retrospective and then readjust. So the way like feedback fertility is kind of like having your KPIs, when instead of having, work done or something, it's your plan. It's how your plan's doing. And being able to review that on a weekly, bi-weekly basis allows you to adjust in time. So you might have your fertilizer plan in the beginning of the season, but how often are you kind of checking in and seeing how things go? And how can we isolate, week to week to learn about kind of trial results or impact on the specific input or fertilizer plan for even variety studies, right? So I think that was really well received and fits well into kind of the 4R mind space of
Absolutely.
is it the right rate? Well, that's clearly what we're working on.
No, that's awesome. And that's where really precision agriculture is going, right? Is knowing the data. You have to know the data and making adjustments. It's not just laying out the plan at the beginning of the year and being like, here's the plan for the whole year. That's the way it was used to be done. There are
Yeah,
changes like with your system that you can make now, right? That you're like, you don't have to do that anymore. Let's actually look at it throughout the entire season.
exactly. And I think it's in a really exciting time to be in ag tech because it seems like there's still a couple of big holes missing on the whole system. Like farming is very complex. It's kind of like, medical stuff, really, if you get down to it. It's a complex biological system. But I think we're like a couple years away from putting everything together, at least the major systems, where you have, your weather, your seed, your genetics, your soil, your plant, and put it all together. I think, one of the best parts of what we're doing, I think, is you'll fit in well with the rest of the ecosystem where, if you know your soil, you know your weather, then you know what's going on in your plant. You can kind of, know the whole equation, where a lot of times you're trying to guess the why in the equation. Well, we can go straight to the why and fill that in on what was the end result on the plant. So even though if we don't know every single interaction, we can know what works best.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Now also explain how the precision monitoring acts as the bridge for farmers moving toward a regenerative or biological heavy program, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I think the first thing that gets people interested is that, can I save on fertilizer? I think it's a big cost on everyone's mind. How can I be more efficient there? But by giving like a practical way of like knowing what's in the crop, being able to save there puts them on more of a path to like, okay, well, what's going to work best? And, one of the things that it's giving people the power is that they can do their own trials. Like on a commercial scale now, if you can do the research trial level data collection, that's stopping you from testing a bunch of systems and going in depth and figuring out what works best for your soil, right? I think it's empowering individuals to do their own trials. And I think collectively it'll get us a lot more data on how things work as a whole.
I have to agree with you. And that's kind of what I mentioned earlier on too, where we would utilize it like for ourselves, even where we're helping farms integrate biology and we're helping farms fix their soil and try to really focus on soil health. We can do it right there, right? It's like, no, you don't need the fertilizer. Let's take a little bit of that budget that you already had budgeted and let's pour it into soil health. Right. Like let's let's put some investment into your property and let's really try to focus on the soil health. And that's where we see, or I would see it being used to really help, farmers or producers to move towards that regenerative system or that more biological heavy approach, utilizing biology and those things. So I think that's great.
Yeah. And having the confidence to like, oh, the crop is doing well, that interseason period where it's kind of killing you. If like, is this working or not? Well, you can get an answer right there. Right.
Yeah, no, I like it for sure. And now we'll move into kind of some of the last sections, the future of ag tech, right? Give me your take on ag tech through I guess at the end of the day, disillusionment. Why do so many startups fail? Right? Ag tech, it's hard, right?
Mhm.
And the ag tech trough of disillusionment, it's like everybody wants to jump in. They don't realize the cost of what it's going to take. You guys did it smart, right? You guys got angel investors. You guys got, you started out small. It's not like you try to jump in and do a round of investment, taking in a ton of money to try to build this. Why do so many startups fail, and how did Picketa stay lean and competitive, I guess? Because like you said, 12 people, you guys have developed something that is, it's up there with a lot of those top systems and top ag tech people and ag tech companies, right?
Well,
You
thank you,
know,
Brandon. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Still
right?
early days
How
here,
did you
but
do it? How did you do it? I guess that's really what it is. How did you stay lean and then focus on growing it?
yeah, I think there's a lot of, potholes you can hit that can really mess up on the way. Like, I think staying independent was super important. Having farmers on the team, being very close to our customers always, especially when you're building out the product early on and knowing, what to build. I think a common mistake as well with ag tech, like sensors and things specifically, is going against all the built knowledge that's there. Like if you're not fitting into agronomy as it is now, if you're going out and making metrics and making indices, and it's going to take someone to, study it for a year to understand, even if it's well intentioned, I think that it's a big barrier to adoption. Whereas what we were looking at is we're already using this metric. It's the number one most important metrics in terms of how the crop will do is the nutrients in the crop. How can we get access to that easier instead of trying to invent a new acronym that you got to learn and figure out and implement? It's a data point that people's already been using, not as much as they want to or they should, but it already had that kind of literature behind it. So when we go to an agronomist, they already have 30 years of this data point built up. That's a huge asset for us. We can plug that in and start building on top of it instead of trying to change the whole dogma of agronomy. So that was, I think, a big part of it.
Yeah, you guys basically, easiest way to say it, you scratched an itch, right? You guys figured it out.
Just
And I mean,
one.
yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And you focused on it and you just stayed lean, and you
Yeah.
actually were able to then produce that data that was really needed by the farms, which then
Yeah.
proved obviously to be beneficial, or they wouldn't have given you money, right?
Yeah,
These
and
local
it's staying
farmers.
focused. Like we
Yeah.
get requests all the time to, can you do soil? Can you do water? Can you do these different crops and things? And, for 2 years, we just did potatoes. And I think we're all the better because of it. And we're slowly adding, one crop a year, 2 crops a year. Eventually want to get into every major crop. But, that's when one of the things that, we only do leaf tissue analysis, and we only did it in potatoes for the longest time.
Yeah. And you never know what the future holds, right? Once you guys, 10 years down the road or whatever, or maybe it's sooner than that. But as you guys get better and better at exactly what you're doing, you never know potentially where you guys will branch out or what'll happen. But I think that's a great way to look at it, especially in the ag tech side of things, because there's a lot of people jumping into it. Right. And there's going to be a lot of people that go broke. I hate to say it, just because I see it happens a lot in robotics. They'll
Yeah.
start a robotics company up, and it's a great idea, and it's just, and then they go away. It happened also in the biological side of it. We've been doing this since 2008. That's when I started Rocky Mountain Bioag, and we've seen a lot of biological technology companies come and go. Right. And I don't know if it was just too early, their technology didn't work, but that's great. And it's a great way that you took it on, and it just, we're really smart. You're focused, you're pinpointed. We're going to fix this problem, right? We're going to scratch this itch of why does it take 3 weeks or 2 weeks to get results? Let's fix that. And you guys have done it. Will we see the lens technology mounted on drones or autonomous tractors in the next 5 years or sooner? Or is it going to be more so that black box infield, scanning? What do you see?
Yeah, I think the ultimate holy grail of what we're building here and what a lot of people have been building is, agronomy completely automated. Like I said, as a farmer, imagine if you didn't have to think about fertilizer, fertility,
Yes.
it's already all figured out. We're a long ways from that, but putting it directly on, let's say, a sprayer where it can sense the plant need, prescribe it automatically, knows all the context of the field, the historical data, the products out there, that is it profitable to put this product on, and then applies it just at the right spot. If you think of where variable rates are going, if you're going the more specialized products, more powerful products, and more sensing technology, I think that's the ultimate place where it'll end up. If it's within the next 5 years, I can't I can't really predict that, but that's, I think, what we're building towards in the long term. starting next year, I think it's still building out, how can we get the most predictable, easy to use models in this current system for the main crops. That's our focus for the next year. But I think that's where it's going long term is, we'll basically just listen to the clients what they need, automatically apply it, and be able to solve agronomy. And that's, as an engineer, it's great to pick a really hard challenge to work on because you'll have plenty to show on.
Yeah, no. And I have to agree with you. I mean, when I said that earlier on, you're going to be able to be doing scans or you'll have a robot out there that has these, the lens technology built into it. They're out there driving fields at, a certain time every day or whatever that looks like. And then they're just relaying that data back to drones that are staged, waiting, that gets the nutrition they need and they head straight to the field. And it's literally you're operating your farm over a phone or something like that, a tablet, whatever that looks like. I agree. I think it's the future. It's still a ways away.
You can see the puzzle pieces kind of get built, right? You got autonomous tractors here, you got sensing technology, different products, different VR stuff. I think it's going to be an eventful 5 years, and we're definitely building kind of our part of it of can we do the best system on Earth to sense the planet.
Great. And you guys are doing a great job. And you guys also, so you've moved beyond just North America. And I mean, I guess you're already used on about 4 continents. Is that correct?
Yeah. We've done testing on, 4 continents right now.
Wow. That's
so
awesome.
like our commercial base right now is mostly US and Canada. A lot of it's in the Midwest US and Western Canada. And then it's the UK. We've done a lot of testing in Latin America and starting a bit in Australia. So commercially, it's really only available in US, Canada. But I think, it's something we've learned that this is a problem everywhere. And the more data we can put into the system, the better it gets for everyone. So yeah, it's going to be an objective in the next couple of years is to expand our borders beyond that.
You've said that proximity to the customer is about information, right? Not just location. How does real-time testing change the relationship between an agronomist and a grower, would you say?
Yeah, it changes a bit. Like before meeting agronomists going out, meeting a farmer, checking out these fields, we can make all the same process happen, but asynchronously, right? So if you think of an agronomist now, there's more pressure ever than to do more fields, talk to more farmers, be more involved, especially with even broadacre farms, they're getting more into micronutrients and specialty nutrients and even biologicals and things. It's much more involved. Great potential,
Sure.
but you got to be more involved as an agronomist. So
Yes.
how can you manage all that? Well, if your scout can, not just do the field visit, but can relay you the information you need to then consult with the farmer, it's now less about being in the same field and both looking at it. And it's more like, okay, well, we have this routine system that's going to get the data every time the scout's there. I can even be in the office as an agronomist, see the data coming in, and then instantly inform the farmer on what's the kind of game plan, right? So it's a bit of a gamification of it, so to say. It's all a bit more online, a bit more automatic. And one of the things we've noticed is that as an agronomist, you're doing hours and hours a week in Excel to put all this together anyways. It's you're getting paper reports, you're getting PDFs and things, you're putting it together, doing your analysis, and then you're able to talk to your farmer. So there's not only the lab delay, but the analytical delay of just doing that work and looking through the fields. Whereas now with the way we built our platform, we've tried to take kind of the best of those processes. It's already built in. So if you take 2 samples in the field, it will compare them automatically for each nutrient, and you can export that in a second to send it to a grower. So it's more about being on the offense than defense, so to say.
Also, most ag tech is software only, right? That's what we're seeing a lot. There's a lot of software out there. A lot of it's AI based, those types of things. It's all software. You kind of chose the hard path, right? You did do the software side of it, but you also built the hardware. Right? There's 2 pieces to your puzzle here. Why was the physical probe necessary to solve the specific problem that you guys were after? Was it just the cameras that are built into it, or what was it? Why did you say, okay, we're going to build the hardware and the software?
Yeah, it wasn't feasible otherwise. We sometimes get asked well, could I just do this from my phone and take a picture of the crop and, get it analyzed? And you can do some things there. You can get NVDI, you can get kind of greenness index. But like I mentioned, it doesn't really, it doesn't do much better than visual analysis of the best trained agronomists. Whereas with our system, we're using 2 separate spectrometers built into it that scans the leaves directly. These are pretty, I'd say, overpowered sensors for what our use case is. But that's part of the point is that, we can, as we're building a data set, get the best data set possible. But those sensors allows us to see more than that human eye can can categorize it all. And then our models are a lot more quick because of it as well, because it's just a single kind of scan from a dozen leaves versus needing to like denoise an entire picture. So even if you had the extra bandwidth on a like a hyperspectral camera, one, those are super expensive right now. Two, there's a lot of noise that you need to denoise it. Whereas like we're directly on the leaf, really good resolution bandwidth kind of gives us the best chance to do our core analysis.
Man. So yeah, it's imperative. Has to be there, right? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
Needed.
No, that's great. Absolutely. I'm going to break down into just some quick closing rapid fire questions for you. These don't have to be long answers, but what is one thing every grower could do tomorrow to improve their nutrient efficiency?
Tissue test. That's an easy one for me to say, but generally, tissue testing, tidial testing. If you're already doing soil, I think that's the foundation of it. But take the extra step and see like, is it going up into nutrient uptake?
Perfect. What is the biggest lesson you learned since closing the? I believe is it about a $1.4 million seed round for your company? What's the biggest lesson you've learned?
It's a good question. I think definitely a lot of things have changed in agronomy status. Was like about 2 years ago now. So I think like sticking close to customers is always the most important thing. It was when we were just started, and it still is. Everything we do, we try to get as much feedback as we can from clients. So it's not really something new, but something that has been proven to us time and time again that that's the most valuable thing.
And then, if you wouldn't mind, the last part of this. If you'd let our listeners know where's the best place, to find Picketa Systems.
Yeah, like we try to be easy to find online, picketa.com. So picketa.com. We also have some socials now. So like we've been doing TikToks for about a year, and we had to get over 30,000 views in the last couple of weeks. So it's definitely picking up some steam. So you want to just learn a bit more about what we're doing and reach out. That's not a bad place to do it on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, or info@picketa.com directly. That's the easiest way.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, no. And, like I said, we wanted to have you guys on here because we feel that the technology that you guys are bringing to the ag industry is going to change it long term. Picketa Systems, they're really doing a great job at, like I said, scratching that itch, right? There was an issue there that that gap needed to be closed. And so what they've done and what they've created it's an amazing tool. If you're an agronomist, if you're a field scout, ag retailer, you name it, definitely take a look at what Picketa's done. The technology, I don't see them slowing down anytime soon by any means, and what we're hoping is that we'll have you on here again, sometime soon, Xavier, and we'll be able to talk more about this, what you're seeing change this year, those types of things to really let the industry know that you guys are here for one, and then for two, that you're not going to go anywhere. You guys are making huge changes and headway into the ag industry and really fixing problems, which is what's needed, as we move into the future of agriculture. So just wanted to definitely thank you for sure for being here with us today. Like I said, any questions, definitely Picketa. You can reach out to Picketa Systems. He gave you the way to get in touch with them. If you would, like the podcast, follow it. If you're listening to it on, Apple or Spotify, if you would give it a 5-star review. We're trying to get in with the CEOs of these companies that are changing the ag industry and let the world know of what they're doing and the great things they're doing for ag in itself. So again, thanks a lot, Xavier, for being on with us today. And we look forward to definitely doing another one with you.
It's very kind, Brandon. Thank you.
Yes. You have a great day, Xavier.